Today on MVP, we'll be chatting with Panama Jackson, co-founder of hugely popular Black culture blog, Very Smart Brothers. We'll be discussing what it takes to sell your company and demystifying what life is like after an exit. Hey Panama, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm happy this weather is finally breaking in Chicago, so I cannot complain. You know, for those of my listeners who don't know, Panama and I have been, friends for years now. I don't, going back to my DC days, I don't even remember how we met. Like, it's been that long. But, Panama's been a great source of, business and personal counsel for me. So, of course, I had to ask him to come be on the show. He's one of my first guests, so I'm very excited about that. So thank you for taking the time out to speak with me.
It's my pleasure. Glad to be here. Look forward to the conversation and, glad to be one of the first guests. It's a pretty cool honor.
Well, I'm honored that you would say that. I'm flattered by that. I'll just go ahead and just get right into it. I know, why a big part of the reason why I asked you to be here today is because your blog is loved by so many people. I mean, from seeing the post about 10 things your black ass shouldn't bring to the cookout or to your reviews on Queen Sugar. I mean, we've all seen or shared a VSB post. But I think, I know the kind of the backstory and it's just in talking to you and knowing you for a while, but I think a lot of people have probably caught on to VSB in probably the past 2-3 years or the past 5 years, and they don't know like how you and Damon got started with VSB. So for those who aren't familiar, could you kind of give us like a recap on like how you guys got connected, why you decided to start VSB, and like what made you think that this was the right idea to pursue?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, VSB was started largely just on a lark. Damon and I knew each other from our individual blogs. We met probably 2004. And, over time, that's back when there weren't a ton of black bloggers. Black male bloggers is even a smaller community, so you all kind of met each other just naturally. And then, over time, we both got a little bit burned out on the individual blogging process, but we also had been talking about writing a book together. This is one of those things everybody who starts writing decides they want to do. We're going to write a book. Like, that's what we're going to do. Like, everybody's on this book thing. And we were like, well, in order to keep our names out there during the time that we're working on this book, let's start a group blog. And I asked Damon, I was like, yo, we need a name. He was like, how about Very Smart Brothers? I was like, cool, that works. And
just
I
that
went
simple.
to one of
just that simple. You're just like, okay, cool.
It was literally.
Like, I feel like that's such like a man thing. Like, yeah, there was no discussion, no debate. It was just like, oh, Very Smart Brothers, that works. Let's just go for it.
Listen, even the idea to do it, it was just a conversation we had when it was like, hey, we should start a blog. He was like, cool. And I was like, dude, we need a name. He was like, how about Very Smart Brothers? I was like, cool. So in under 5 minutes, we went from no blog to having a whole blog. And we went, and Liz Burr, who was our third co-founder, handled all the tech stuff for us. So, I'm talking to her in between time, like, yeah, Damon and I want to start a blog. And she's like, all right. So it was a very quick process. That's how it got started. Basically, we were two dudes wanting to write a book who decided to put together a blog in the meantime. And the website so we started devoting more time to the website than we did to working on this mystical book that brought us together in the first place. And, the rest is, I guess, rock and roll history, so to speak.
So what do you think was the catalyst for VSB's success initially? Because, I mean, did you see success immediately, or did it take some months, some weeks for kind of things to get going, some years to get going? And I mean, if I recall your story correctly, like, you and Damon didn't even, like, meet for the first, like y'all never, like, vlogged together or in person or in the same place for, like, years. Like, how did that work?
Yeah, I mean, success depends on how you look at it. So when we first started VSB, we each brought individual audiences with us. So from the start, we had really good like comment numbers, and we had good like engagement. We did numbers. It wasn't like we started from complete scratch. It did build though. Like the more that we wrote, the more VSB took off. We won awards. We won. There's one year, I think, back when the Black Weblog Awards was a thing, we swept like every category we won. We won like 6 or 7 different awards. like best writing in a blog, best humor, best relationship. Like we won all these things, and that was just a matter of time, right? It was just that was like 2010, maybe 2011, which is when Damon and I did meet. So you're right, Damon and I didn't meet in person until 3 years after the blog had started. 2011, April 2011, which is the year that we released our book. Your degrees won't keep you warm at night. The Very Smart Brother's Guide to Dating, Mating, and Fighting Crime. So it was like we kept having these incremental successes. Like we'd work for a little while, then we'd get profiled in a newspaper article. We work a little bit more, then we catch like a major magazine, or we'd catch the Washington Post, or we'd catch, it was just the right people were reading VSB who would then do profiles on it. So people in positions to profile this blog that was keeping them entertained, that was very no frills. And Liz had the right connections too. So it was like we were very fortunate in timing and the kind of topics we were writing about that just resonated with people. And those people were in positions to profile and feature us in ways that got us new writers and got us a bigger platform.
Okay. So like along the way, was there any like moments where you felt like were either like an aha moment? Like I know you came with the audience and you saw success from the beginning, but like was there any moments that stood out for you personally that were like, damn, we're really on to something, like this could be a real thing, or like maybe this is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life? Or was there anything that stood out either early on or even later that you were like, like this is my full circle moment?
That's like a really good question because that came in waves. So, for instance, the first real aha moment, like that we had something was probably 2011 when we released the book. All of a sudden, we end up on everybody's radar, right? Books lend credibility for whatever reason. We say we have one, even though we self-published it, like it ended up giving us this credibility we didn't have before necessarily as just a blog. So I end up on BET with Ed Gordon or whatever Ed Gordon show was. We get profiled in the Washington Post, Black Enterprise, Ebony Jet, Ebony. We're like everywhere. I mean, we end up on their like Ebony Power 100 list, which includes people like Obama and Oprah. You know what I'm saying? Like we end up in those kind of places. And that was like the first aha moment. Like we really do have something here. We caught fire. Now, that wasn't a point when I thought we could, I think in the back of my mind, I always thought we could do something with it for life, like permanently. At this point, though, Damon is actually writing for a living. So he gets a job at Ebony, like he has like an actual job at Ebony. And I still have my regular day job, my like desk job. So I don't plan on leaving it. I'm always in the back of my mind like, man, it would be dope to be able to do this full time. It wasn't until like 2015, I think, when we started having conversations and people started reaching out to us about like writing full time. Like Damon got his own individual, looks. I did too. And I forgot to mention during this time, I think it was like 2009, 2010, Women's Entertainment Television, WeTV reaches out to me and has me come write for a blog that they have. And they were paying stupid money at that time. Like I made so much money writing for Women's Entertainment Television, like on top of the other stuff that I was doing. So like those are the little aha moments. Like people who you wouldn't expect to be checking for you start checking for you and then put money in your pocket and feature you in places to put more money in your pocket. And then eventually we start having conversations with entities who are interested in acquiring a piece of VSB or VSB outright. At one point we were working on a pilot for a TV show. We've lived a bunch of lives with VSB and got an opportunity to try and do lots of things with VSB that I don't think everybody else who does this blogging thing has got the opportunity to do, which is a blessing. I mean, I don't take any of it for granted. It's kind of dope to be able to do these things and be in a position we're in now. But, it's been a long process, but it's been like 90% positive, only like 10%. Like, what in the world is going on here? Like, what is this nonsense?
Okay, so you mentioned that a little earlier that you started to get the attention of other entities who wanted to acquire a piece of VSB, and then you guys eventually did get acquired, like about a year. I guess it's been a year and a half so far. Like maybe it was like late 2017.
Like 2 years ago, like
Yeah.
2017. Yep.
So, okay, so, I know this was kind of always kind of something on the side. You had your day job, but like, when did like the reality of, I think we're going to sell this, or we are going to, go that direction as far as the exit strategy is concerned? Because I mean, like, when people start initially like, you know, reaching out to you about, okay, we want to acquire a part of VSB, like, were you initially warm to it, or was it something you were always open to, or is it something happened that you were like, okay, we need to pivot and we need to go this direction, and now we're going to just open ourselves up to selling our company?
I swear, almost everything that happens with VSB is 100% spur of the moment. So, for instance, I don't think Damon and I ever thought about selling VSB or a part of it until somebody approached us like, have you guys ever thought about this? And we're like, no, we haven't. But now that you mentioned it, let's think about it. You know what I mean? And we had several entities come to us that way. Like we had, I want to say this must be 2015, maybe. We had this group, these cats in LA who came to us with they wanted to basically be a majority stakeholder in VSB. Now, keep in mind, David and I know nothing about this world at all. Like nothing about the business end of VS, nothing about how ownership of anything works. So we're having these conversations, and that kind of puts the bug in our ear of, maybe we can do this that way. Maybe we can enter the business world that way, right? Those conversations fell apart. I mean, they didn't fall apart so much as Damon and I just didn't think it was the right decision for us because we didn't know what we were doing. To be blunt, we had no idea what we were doing, but we did know that what they put on the table was not something that we were interested in, right? Later on that year, and I remember, I think it was 2015, maybe early 2016, we get a call from another entity, a very high-profile entity, or at least the owner of it was a high-profile person that I was aware of, that Damon was aware of, reached out to us about purchasing the site and folding us, bringing us into their fold, not changing anything, but, basically taking our traffic and taking our content to build up their own entity while also letting VSB do our thing, right? They basically just wanted our content and our traffic. And they were willing to pay us for it. But they wanted to buy us outright. And I think that at that point, me and Damon really started having these conversations. Before they act, funny, I have to remember all this stuff. We actually had a deal on the table with them, like paperwork. We'd gone through these we had lawyers involved. We had a literal final draft of a contract done with this entity who I will not name. And they started stalling. So from June through September, we worked with lawyers to get this contract in a way that we were all satisfied with, right? Come September, we're ready. We're like, all right, we're done. We're good. We're finished. We have the final contract. We're ready to sign. They started stalling. Didn't hear from them in October. Didn't hear from them for weeks. I called in October. We have a long talk, and they're like, yeah, money. We're trying to get this money together. November, December. Like, it's a constant struggle to get them on the phone and get an opportunity to close this deal, for which, again, we've had a contract done for months at this point. We had a contract done so long that we ended up outside of the exclusivity window, right? Like when you do a contract for an acquisition, there's like an exclusivity window. During these 90 days, you will not talk with anybody else about the purchase. You won't do any of that type of stuff, right? We did all that. That falls apart. And then the root, which at that point had been purchased by Gizmodo Media, who, they had that whole issue with Gawker. So Gawker goes away. Gizmodo, and the root is part of them. They reached back out to us. And they put an offer on the table, and we're like, at this point, we're ready to do it. What I said I was going to come back to is the Root actually was one of the companies that tried to buy us before. And I didn't like the terms of the deal. Or I didn't like what I thought would end up being the terms of the deal. So, it ended up being a non-starter. And they went away, and then fortuitously, after the deal falls through with the other company, they happened to reach back out to Damon, and Damon was like, yo, this is back on. And I was already out on the company where the deal fell through, which was for quite a bit of money. It was very disappointing. It was disappointing in the sense that I was like, yo, we're about to hit it big financially. But in retrospect, it just wasn't the right place for us. It would not have been a good fit.
Did you feel like you were like on a kind of on an emotional roller coaster as far as like all the negotiations were concerned, and like getting your hopes up about this happening, about the money, about like what this is going to look like for you and your family, and then that feeling like it's being pulled away from you, or like even alternatively like the process of negotiating like the giving away of like your blog baby, like this is something you've built from the ground up, like where was your head at when you were going through the negotiations?
I was less concerned about losing VSB, only because VSB is Damon and I, right? Like if Damon and I aren't there, there's no VSB, right? Like it's so personality heavy. Ultimately it'd be great to build it up so that it could live without us. But the truth is, like, people associated with one another. So I'm like, if we lose VSB, if something goes wrong, this might be selfish, but I think Damon and I both feel like we can do something else. We can come because we actually want to work together. Like we are tied at the hip and we're good with that. So we've decided that's what we're gonna do forever, right? In terms of the emotional roller coaster, man, yes. Oh my God, I think I hated that other company at one point because it's like we went through all this trouble to get these contracts together, which was its own, emotional strain. We're going back and forth on this little point here, this little point there. I'm talking to this guy, talking to this person. I'm trying to make sure that we're not getting taken advantage of. And then, and yes, I was thinking about, man, when this deal goes through, these are the things I can finally do for my family. This is what life is going to look like. I'm planning to quit the job that I had, like I'm mapping these things out for it to all get stalled out on the fact that they never had the money to begin with. It made me realize that too good to be true thing is real, even if somebody's willing to push it to the very limit. And that really frustrated me. Like that genuinely pissed me off. And I was upset. I was mad about it. But, God closed one door, opened up another one. Literally, while I'm sitting here frustrated, we get the call back from Univision and the Root, like, hey, we want to bring you into the fold. And that negotiation was simple and clean, straight to the point. We didn't have any real bones to pick on anything. Like, it was literally the best deal that we could have got for the right situation with the right people. So that, despite all the stress of the earlier situation, the new one worked out well. And let me tell you something. I remember once Damon and I decided we were going to go with this new Root deal, or we were going to enter negotiations with them, I emailed the other company and was like, thanks for everything. Very professionally, thank you for taking interest in us. This deal is taking longer to close than we thought. We don't see an end in sight. We're going to pass on this, but we appreciate it. When I tell you, the CEO of that other company called me and basically threatened me, you need to give me this and this and this and all this other stuff because you owe me. But man, it took everything in me not to go clean off and stay professional. Like that's how I've been pushed to that level. Because we're not talking about small money here. We're talking about life-changing money. You know what I'm saying? Like you're about to change my circumstances, but you're playing with my emotions because you don't have it. And you're banking on these other things to come through so you don't have to use your money to pay for this. Oh my goodness. Let me tell you, God looked out. I'm not a religious person, but God looked out home. Like, cause if we would have signed with that company, I think VSB would have gone under. I wouldn't be who I am now. I'll say that. So, it worked out the way that it was supposed to, but it was very stressful. Once I realized that things weren't going to materialize the way that they were, the way that we thought they were, and the way that these companies presented themselves, that was more frustrating than anything. Like, why lie? Like, why are you making up this story? You know what I'm saying? That was stressful, but again, it worked out how it was supposed to.
Well, everything comes, full circle. You're where it's supposed to be. Ain't no accidents, ain't no mistakes. But, now that you're on the other side of the acquisition, like, what does that look like? I mean, on a day-to-day basis, like, how has your life changed? Is there anything surprising that, like, you've kind of learned about yourself personally and professionally now that you are, you've exited and sold your company?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I can say is that looking on the other side, my life has changed. One, I write for a living. I don't have I'm not tied to a desk, and a desk like traditional job capacity. So that's awesome. Um, VSB is running like it should. We have writers. Damon and I continue to write. The site is doing really well traffic wise. Like, it's literally where we want it to be, but it gave us more opportunities to do things because we don't have to worry about the business end of it anymore, right? Like, I just get to be a writer and a creative, and I like that. I did learn a lot through the process of the negotiations and everything. Like, I learned so much. I learned how you can screw yourself. I learned about trusting your instincts. I learned about making sure that I read everything the lawyers are reading. I learned that if you have a question, you need to ask it. Don't leave anything to chance. Make sure that you understand everything that's there because, and make sure that, listen, they wanted us. And I walked into those negotiations with that in mind, right? Like, let's be honest here. They're coming for us. Like, let's not negotiate thinking that we're going to lose an opportunity. Like, realize they came to us, so they're at least going to listen. And that's a very powerful place to be in. I mean, I'm not saying that anybody got screwed in this deal. They won and we won is how I view it. And professionally, it was a great choice for us. And it was a great choice for them business-wise. And them being the Root and Univision, even though the Root is not owned by Univision anymore. We just got bought out by somebody else. Gizmodo Media got bought by, I think, Great Hill Partners or something like that. But I learned a lot, and it was a good business decision. And I feel very comfortable with it where I am now in life and where my family is being taken care of and how I'm being able to take care of my family and the opportunities it's opening. And it's just giving us on a personal level, like, I used to have to straddle this line between Panama Jackson and my day job, and I don't have to do that anymore. Like, I can be free to do whatever I want to do, and it just is what it is. And I can't say enough how freeing that is. I'm very happy with where we are now.
Well, I'm happy that you're happy.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course. So I know, like, me being on the tech side of things, like, I meet so many founders who, have been through acquisitions or, exited their companies in one way or the other. And, from what I hear, I've never been through an acquisition myself, but from what I hear, there's often, like, kind of this immediate impulse, especially from people who identify as, like, true entrepreneurs, to start a new project. Like, do you feel any compulsion to, start something new or start all over again or start from scratch? Or do you feel like, I'm good, like I'm Gucci right now, like I just want to see where this goes and I'm like enjoying my freedom? Or is it like, oh, like now that I have this freedom, can I do something else with it?
Yeah, I think because we never viewed this as an exit strategy to begin with, I don't think either of us is viewing this from an exit standpoint. Like, we didn't build it to sell it. It ended up being something we were able to sell and make money off of to build our brand up even more, right? So I have no compulsion to start anything new or try something different unless I have to. What I do have a desire to do is within the brand that we've built and within the additional resources that we've gotten because of the acquisition, I want to expand VSB into other platforms, right? Into other multimedia platforms. I don't want VSB just to be written anymore. I want it to be in video and podcasting and all these others. I want to try everything within VSB because we have a different set of resources than we had before. So if anything, it just makes me want to build a VSB even more. Like, because even though we're part of the Root right now, we're still a very independent entity. People still view VSB and the Root. Like, it's not just VSB as the Root. You know what I'm saying? So, I think if I was building some kind of tech company or something like that, I'd be building it up with the hopes of selling to a bigger platform like Google or Facebook or somebody like that. Like, I would build it with that in mind. That was never what we did. We're creating like editorial content. And because that's what we're doing and we like the VSB brand that we built, I still want to drive that train. Because again, like I said earlier, I mean, VSB is effectively Damon and I. If we bounce, then there's no more VSB, right? So, it doesn't behoove anybody for either party it doesn't behoove us to leave, because if we leave, VSB dies. And then we'd be forced to start something new. And for, the Root, they want us to try all these other things because the better VSB does, the better the Root does. So I think we're all in agreement that we want to make VSB as good as it could possibly be. And that's the goal that we all have. None of it is about getting out of there. And we actually like being there. I mean, I like being at the root. I like my coworkers. I like the environment. I like what we have there. I like being in this very Black space of creating Black, content. Like it's a rarity to have that kind of name brand cachet and all that, and still be able to maintain some type of independence and authority over the things that you're doing. So I'm good where we are. We're not thinking what next. Not in that way anyway. Not in the new thing way. More in a what's next for VSB way.
So I was going to ask you, did the acquisition or like you coming into this money or whatnot, has it furthered your passion or like purpose for VSB? But I think you just answered that. And, I think that's amazing because I know one thing that I struggle with is like focus. Like, I'm like a true entrepreneur at heart, and I'm always, I'm always running by like new ideas by you, and like, hey, I just thought of this, I thought of that, and so I think, for me, I think there's this constant like desire to try these new things. So it's really amazing to see like that you not only, have the passion to like grow this brand, but there's the capacity for you to do so. There's so many resources now available to you in which you can be the true creative that you are at heart. So, I mean, that's an amazing thing to see. And like, we're looking forward to seeing what's next for VSB.
Yeah, me too. And, I think that speaks directly to coming into a space that's the right fit. Because it's not a tech company or somebody we weren't acquired to fold it into something to build up another brand as that. We were allowed to be an independent space within it. They just want our traffic and our content, right? But they want us to continue being the best us that we can be. And that's very liberating to know that when you speak of focus, Damon and I both had all these other things around us, financial, jobs, whatever, that were taking away that focus. It made it difficult to focus purely on VSB. Well, now that we're in this situation, we have like a constant paycheck, we have benefits tied to writing. Like, we are in a space where we can literally focus purely on VSB. Damon has his book that he just released. So he was focused on that, but VSB is still the thing that we realize got us where we're going. So we don't want to lose sight of that. And because of that, we stay focused on VSB and what VSB can be.
So before I let you go, I'm coming up on time here or whatnot, but I wanted to ask you a question from one of our listeners. And,
Okay.
we try to ask everyone who's going to be on the show, give our listeners business advice as well, because most of them are like, entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs, emerging entrepreneurs, or just creatives who, have something going on and they're looking for guidance and help in getting to the next level. So I'm just going to read this to you real quick. So my name is
Okay.
George, and I'm a lifestyle entrepreneur from Detroit, Michigan. I've had the fortune of living in various cities throughout America, both mid and major, and have taken a liking to contributing to the social scenes in this market. So my question is, in the idea of timing and being that most people are connected socially, how do you overcome introducing a new component and it not being socially accepted? How do you mature, quote unquote, a demographic so they aren't intimidated by trying something new, and welcome and support new ideas in a market that is on the cusp of change but hasn't quite tipped the point? So, I mean, I guess, in knowing some context about who submitted it, from what I understand, they're in the events and lifestyle space. They're thinking about trying some new event concepts, possibly some, brick and mortar businesses that are just taking new twists and new spins on industry. So, like, how do you get people to warm up to these new ideas and these new concepts, and to step outside of their box as far as like, taking a chance on your idea?
I mean, I can speak to that directly with VSB, right? Like, that's when we got acquired, everybody wasn't happy about it. We moved to an entirely different platform, a different commenting platform. Anybody who's ever been in VSB knows that our comment section was our draw for lots of people. And all of a sudden, it's different. We lost a ton of readers who decided basically that VSB ended in 2017 when we were acquired, right? And some people followed along and still read because they really enjoyed the content and the space that we built. But, what we had to do was one, we have to accept that this is going to be a part of life, right? This is just what's going to happen. Some people ain't going to follow you along. And that has to be okay, because you have to understand that what you're doing is in the best interest of your brand and your company, right? So we did that. What we also did was address our people directly. We wrote an entire article about the new changes and what this meant and what that meant for everybody else. And while we want everybody to stay, we understand everybody's not going to, but if they, just give us a chance, like give us a little bit of time and see how it goes, and they'll see that it's not a whole different space, So we basically had to plead with our audience and hope that they could understand that we were doing this for the VSB community in general, but we were doing it for us a little bit selfishly and personally, and we needed to be able to do that. And some people came along, some people didn't, you know what I mean? And, we're doing better traffic wise than we ever did before, but that a lot of that are people that weren't there from the beginning. We do miss those people, but I do think largely most of our longtime readers are happy for us, even if they had to get off that train. You know what I'm saying? And, it's just a fact of life and a fact of business. When you do something different and try something new, everybody's not going to love it. Some people are like, I only want what I came here for to begin with. And, luckily, I think for us, the way we benefited was that it's such a personality driven site. People genuinely like Damon and I enough to want what's best for us and our families, that even if they didn't love it, they wished us the best in the process. And we couldn't ask for anything better than that. So, you do your best and you hope for the best, and you just got to know that what you're doing is right. And, in business and any endeavor, you're going to fail more times than you're going to succeed, I guess. And you just got to hope that those successes far outweigh the failures, or far outweigh the negative impact of those changes.
Yeah, I think chiming in, I guess piggybacking on it rather, what you just added is that, I think for me, and like trying new ideas and new markets, I think you just kind of have to have enough faith to just build it and then just kind of say, fuck it. Like, I feel like, there's just some type of degree of risk, and you have to have such a faith in your idea and like the concept that you're bringing forth, that, a part of that is accepting that, everyone's just not going to like it, and having to make peace with that within yourself. Like, some people not liking it, or it having a slow start because people aren't familiar with it yet or aren't warm to it yet, isn't a good enough reason to not do it. It's like, I think about that. What is
Right.
it? I think Henry Ford quote or whatever, when he's like, if I would have asked people when it came to building an automobile, like if I'd have asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. I think a lot of people don't know what they want until you present it to them, right? And even if you pitch it and you have the most phenomenal pitch in the world, they're still like, I don't know. I'm kind of good where I'm at. But I think, I think people shouldn't be afraid of like small starts. Like, everything has to start from somewhere, and it'll gradually grow. But there, like you said, there's going to be a lot of failures, a lot of hiccups, a lot of hurdles along the way. But if you truly know that you're on to something, you got to figure out a way to kind of keep doing it without, losing that enthusiasm for the idea, for the project itself, or for the mission that you're trying to ultimately accomplish. Because there's going to be hurdles, and people aren't going to be warm to it at first, but eventually they'll come around, and like you'll find your tribe.
I agree completely. Part of the game, man. This is how it goes, and sometimes it works, but you got to believe in you. That's the crux of all endeavors. You're going to jump out there, you got to believe in yourself enough to know that what you're doing is going to work. Or at least hope that it's going to work, but have enough faith in yourself to not believe that failure is an option. You need to be surprised.
Or I feel like you kind of always know that failure is an option in the back of your mind, but like, failure, I don't think is like the end all be all, right? Like, you're gonna fail.
Right, it's part of it.
Yeah, you're gonna fail so many times along this journey, and like, there's gonna be small failures and big failures. Like, I read about and hear about companies all the time that like literally were like one check away or like one payroll away from completely going out of business, and like they're still here, right? Like, that was if you're one check away from like firing your whole staff, that is a failure. That's somebody's failure in that company, right? Or like the company's failure as a whole. But like, you keep going. Like, if you believe that and maybe it just means that like the company doesn't look how you envision it, initially. Like maybe you go a different direction, but it could still exist in some shape or form. But it's just going to take time. It's going to take faith. It's going to just take dedication to that idea and like where you want to go, and like knowing that like waiting and patience process is not pretty. It's going to be taxing. It's going to be draining. But like if you can get to the other side of it, then you can get the fulfillment and like the financial rewards of like knowing that you saw this idea through.
Yeah, it's when it works, it's a beautiful thing.
For sure. Well, that's I mean, that's all I really have for you today. You anything you want to shout out or anything you want to say before we wrap it up?
No, just check out VSB, verysmartbrothers.com, and enjoy the shenanigans. Hopefully you'll be able to hear some podcasts and, a little more video content. Like we're ramping up. We're doing our best to expand the way that we bring VSB to the world. That is our goal at this point. Oh, and get Damon's book, What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Blacker, in stores now, everywhere you buy books.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks again for stopping by. It's been a pleasure speaking to you today, and we're excited about the next steps for VSB, and we will definitely all go get Damon's book. I'll share the link when we release this episode, so that we can check that out and your new content. So thanks again, and have a great one.
My pleasure. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to MVP. If you'd like to hear more from me or our guests, visit mvpodcast.substack.com for exclusive content, updates, and announcements. And if you love the show, please subscribe, rate, and review us, or follow us on Instagram at @TheAmandaSpan and MV Podcast. Thanks again, and see you next week.